Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and a brand new experiment where we're going to take a look at what would happen if £1 billion was invested into every single Welsh club. Now, alongside that, we're also going to take a look at what if Wales had the best youth recruitment in the world. So we've changed the national setup in the in-game database for the national team and for each of the clubs in the Welsh Premier League. So we can have a look at that in more detail at the moment. This is a similar experiment to what I did last year in FM18 when I gave every Belgian team £1 billion. And we're going to see what the effect is on a much lower ranked league, because if we take a look at the Welsh League, it is currently ranked 123rd. It's only just above the Ladbrokes League 2 and the Latvian First League. It is not in good shape and it needs a little bit of investment. Now, alongside that, as I said, I have also changed some other details. So you can see if we go to the facilities, or rather the generated players of Wales, they now have a youth rating of 200, which is the best it can possibly be in the world, and everything else is ranked as high as it possibly can be as well. So they've got the best young players coming through Welsh football now, which should enable them to hopefully, at some point in this experiment, win an international tournament. That's one of the key things that we're looking for them to achieve. They're already ranked 8th in the world, which is pretty good, but the world rankings are not necessarily the best description of the best teams in the world. But if we also take a look at each of the teams in the Welsh Premier League, starting with Aberystwyth Town, you can see in their club details, everything else is the same, but when you go to finances, they've got £700 million in the bank. It's not quite £1 billion because a lot of you will know FM has this thing where if the money ticks over or under a certain limit, it resets and you end up in all kinds of different problems. So we've given them more money than they would ever really need. And we're going to see how that goes forward. Obviously, if they start to run out of cash, I can just give them the extra £300 million. That's not going to make any difference to this experiment whatsoever. But what we're going to do today is go forward 10 years into the future, and we'll see how clubs like the New Saints, who have won this title several times over the last 10 years, are getting on, and if they can qualify for the Champions League, and also how the Welsh national team gets on. We'll also take a look at the Wonder Kids as they come through. So do drop a like on the video if you enjoy the concept of this experiment, and let me know in the comments if you have any other suggestions for experiments that I can try in the future. These are usually fan suggested, so make sure you get your pitches in early. And also, if you're new to their channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch the next couple of parts of this experiment. Well, we are now 10 years into the future in this experiment, and you can see the Welsh team has dropped down to 15th in the world. Key players still look pretty familiar to me, the likes of Ben Woodburn, and all the major clubs are exactly as you would expect them to be. The first thing we're going to take a look at, though, is how the Welsh national side have got on over the last 10 years. We'll start in 2017, where you can see the World Cup qualifiers went reasonably well. They did qualify for the World Cup, but they went out very early on, losing to Japan, quite surprisingly, failing to beat Russia and also to Uruguay. They also had the European League. They managed to get 2 wins out of 4 there, which isn't the best. And then in European Championship qualifying, they did reasonably well. Managed to qualify, I'm sure. And then 3 draws in the group stage was somehow enough for them to go through. They drew with Spain, which was impressive. Drew with Russia and with Switzerland. Beat Portugal 2-0 in the second round. And beat Germany 1-0. Ben Woodburn with the penalty, sending them through to the semi-finals, where they unfortunately lost 2-0 to Belgium. But a very impressive run there, and early signs that they could do great things. In the Division B group, they did manage to get 3 wins out of 4, making sure they got through there. Or maybe they didn't actually, because it doesn't look like they were into the next round. Oh, that's just promotion to Division A, I'm sorry. In the World Cup qualifiers, did very, very well, including beating England 1-0 at home and then 2-2 at Wembley. A very good performance. England only saved by a 90th minute equaliser as well. So they definitely qualified for another World Cup, where they did actually get out of the group this time with wins over Greece and Iran, a draw with Uruguay, but knocked out by Switzerland 4-1 in the second round of the World Cup. And their Division A group went horrendously against Italy and Germany. But in the European Championships qualifiers again, they did reasonably well. 2 defeats to Italy won't have helped them, and that defeat to Bulgaria could prove costly. But they did qualify, and again, 2-2 against Turkey, lost 2-0 to Germany, but beat Scotland 2-1. Harry Wilson with 2 goals there. Also beat Austria in the second round and Slovakia in the quarterfinals, but could not beat Portugal this time, and have made the semi-finals of this competition twice now in this experiment. And their Division B campaign did not go very well either in the European League. World Cup qualifiers went reasonably well. It's a bit of a mixed bag as far as I can tell. And it looks like they did not qualify for the World Cup in 2026. Did okay in Division C, as you would expect them to do, really. And up to the present time, they are doing well in their European Championship qualifying, but they have lost to Germany so far, and that will be difficult, making sure they finish above Northern Ireland, who they are still yet to play. Now, looking at the Welsh Premier League, you can see that it has risen up to 66th now in the competition reputation. So it's just below the Sky Bet League 2, Italian Serie C. It's getting up there with some of the lower leagues in the major countries around Europe, but it's still got some way to go to really become competitive with other nations around Europe, especially when it comes to getting coefficients for European competitions. Ultimately, we'd like to see the Welsh League get at least one or maybe two teams into the group stage of the Champions League. So we've still got quite a way to go, because just 10 years on, they're only 66th. But if we have a look at the past winners of the Welsh Premier League, you can see that TNS carried on their winning streak for quite some time before Connors Quay managed to win one, Bangor got one, and then Connors Quay have been dominating along with Bangor ever since. But it's been these three teams pretty much consistently since this experiment began. Nobody else actually getting a look in there at all. So if we have a look at Connors Quay, then we can see that they have come up quite a bit, and they are now sitting at the top there. When we look at their schedule for their senior squad and drop back to the very, very first season, then you can see they were getting knocked out in the first round by Jagiellonia. I don't even know who that is. The following year, they did make it to, again, the first round. They got through the preliminary round and then knocked out in the first round once more. Again, out in the first round. And then they were actually in the Champions League qualifications places. I think this is because they won the league from this season onwards. And they beat BAT Borisov. Oh no, they lost on away goals, unfortunately. They weren't far off there, though. Managed to finish level across two legs. But got through in the Europa League Cup second qualifying round, and then were knocked out in the third round by Astana. The following season, again, second round was as far as they got. Second round again. And then Champions League knocked out by Dinamo, which is not a big surprise. It is a surprise that they managed to win that game 1-0 though. And then managed to make it all the way to the fourth qualifying round where they took on Malmo, but unfortunately that was a step too far, unable to beat them in either leg, and knocked out before making the group stage. Last season, again, they actually made it to the second Champions League qualifying round. After beating Linfield, they were beaten by Olympiacos 4-0 on aggregate. Through in the third round of the Europa League qualification, but lost to Basel in the fourth round. And that's the trouble. They're hitting these big, big teams that you wouldn't find out a place in the Champions League group stage, but they're hitting them in the qualification rounds of the Europa League, and that is holding them back. And then the following season, again, through in the first round, through in the second round of Champions League qualification before coming up against Panathinaikos, another big team. They did well to beat APOEL there. I'm not even sure which team that is. I think they're Cypriot from memory. They are indeed. But then got knocked out by Red Bull Leipzig as well in the fourth qualifying round of the Europa League. And then this season you can see they've got some random team, B36 from the Faroe Islands, up first. I'm sure they will win that, but they have not managed to get past these stages yet. Now, if we have a quick look at Bangor, who also have had a few shots at this, it has to be said, and look at their senior squad, and drop all the way back to the start once more. You can see they got knocked out in the first round of the Europa League qualifying, and again, and again, and again, and then they did make it to the second round before being knocked out by Mould. Lost in the first round. Then they qualified for the Champions League, but got knocked out. Got through this time in the first round, or second qualifying round, but then lost to Sion, a Swiss team. And then again knocked out in the second qualifying round. They have not fared anywhere near as well as Connors Quay, and again knocked out in the qualifying round. So they have really, really struggled to make a break in Europe. And finally, if we have a quick look at TNS, who were winning the league the first few seasons before dropping away somewhat, Then in their first season, they did get to the second qualifying round, but were knocked out there 3-0 on aggregate. Beaten in the Europa League second qualifying round, managed to get to the second round of the Champions League qualifying round again, and through the third round before being beaten 4-0 by Slavia Prague. So they were doing reasonably well. And again, out in the first round of the Champions League qualifiers, but through in the Europa League, managed to beat Dudelange, and then beaten 7-0 on aggregate by Karabag. And the following year, knocked out by Anorthosi. And then finally, they did manage to get through to the second round of the Champions League before getting knocked out. And then beat Dundalk, but were beaten by Rosenborg 2-0 on aggregate. Probably the closest we've seen to the group stage being reached. Again, second qualifying round, second qualifying round, second qualifying round, and then did not qualify for Europe. They are back in there this time, but they have not managed to make the group stage. So none of these teams have made the group stage of any European competition just yet, but it feels like they're getting closer and closer. And if we look at the transfers going back to the first season, remember there was no money in this league whatsoever. We've given them each team £700 million. In the first season, only 1.6k spent across the entire league. The next season, we saw quite a bit more getting spent, 15k, the highest transfer, which is a big step up. Then we had a 95k transfer to Carmarthen, who were the big spenders, but ultimately didn't break anywhere near the top of the league. And then we had a player go from Bala to Spurs. Now that would be the good youth recruitment coming through these teams. And this will be a worry if big teams keep poaching their good players. But that would be a good positive sign that the youth system is working. But no big transfers again. Carmarthen, the team spending the most money right now, but without any real success. Connors Key spent a bit more. This time we did see some bigger transfers going out, but given they've got hundreds of millions of pounds in the bank, I know they can't attract top quality players, but they should be spending more than they are. And then finally we see Connors Key spend nearly £500,000 on a player, but it's from another Welsh team. TNS did bring somebody in from Walsall, so we are seeing that incremental increase. And finally, we break the £1 million barrier. Billy Bowden from Swindon to TNS, who are obviously trying to get back their title. He's now a director of football, so we can't take too much of a look at him. He must have been quite old when he signed. The following season, 825k. So the transfers are definitely getting bigger and bigger. And so far this season, we've already spent over 100k spent in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams do. I think most of them, Aberystwyth is still semi-professional, Airbus semi-professional, Bala have gone professional, Bangor are professional. I think a lot of these probably will have gone professional now. Amateur there for Cardiff Met. But Carmarthen are professional. This team don't have the money, but they are professional. Connors Key, professional. And they are getting better. And when we look, they've got Ched Evans as their manager. Come on, Connors Key, what are you doing? We can't actually look at their finances. I think it's because I'm still on holiday. But they've not spent any money, so nothing's going to have changed there. They're in a very good situation with their stadium, though. So it's positive, it's slow, but things are moving forward. We've gone 10 years ahead today. I think if you guys like this episode, do drop a like on it. If you are enjoying it, I will do another part of this experiment where we go forward, I think probably 20 years, because the progress is so slow, we are going to have to move forward quite quickly. But do drop a like on the video if you would like to see another part of this. And let me know in the comments if you have suggestions for any other kinds of experiments that we can do. And make sure to subscribe as well for when the new part of this comes out in a couple of days' time. But until next time, see ya.